Today, the Pete Alonso sweepstakes continues to roll on. Sweepstakes? I guess you can call it that, with MLB insider and New York Post contributor Jon Heyman linking the polar bear to the Los Angeles Angels. I don't quite believe it, but we're going to break that down on this edition of Mets Digest. What's going on, everybody? Flobo Boyce here, rocking with you, giving you the Mets news and notes, what you need when you need it, because it's 2025 and we're just 50 plus days away from spring training. I don't know about you, but I feel the goosebumps, man. Listen, before we get into today's article, today's topic, do me a favor if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the video, and leave a comment below. I do read the comments, positive and negative, and even though some people out there in the comments trying to kill my vibe, it's all good, even though you're wrong about what exactly is considered clickbait. I don't clickbait. I tell you exactly what it is I'm talking about in the first 30 seconds. But let's get into it. No time for the haters. Pete Alonso is kind of in a weird position, kind of like almost the opposite of Juan Soto. While every day it looked like it was going to be a different team coming up and saying why they would sign the superstar. This seems the market has been cold for Polar Bear. Between the Christmas and New Year's Day week, there really wasn't much action on the first baseman front, but a lot of teams made sure they had their first baseman in tow the week before. I mean, in fact, even Paul Goldschmidt has a job. A couple days ago on a podcast, Jon Heyman, who is either an MLB insider at best or a Pete Alonso market stoker at worst, went out and said that the Los Angeles Angels, yeah, that Angels are eyeing Pete Alonso. Got to give a shout out to those folks over at SI.com for transcribing this because I couldn't believe my mind when I heard it a couple days ago. So he says, quote, speaking to the BR Walkoff podcast on Wednesday, MLB insider Jon Heyman of the New York Post said the Los Angeles Angels are, quote, looking at, end quote, Alonso, but just like the ongoing situation with the Mets, there is a gap between the two sides in terms of years. For those of you who haven't followed the story, Pete Alonso wants multiple years, 6, 7, 8, 9, basically a thank you for his contributions to free agency, whereas the Mets had, as of now, had rumored a 3-year, $90 million offer. So basically, it's kind of a short-term versus long-term situation. Quote, I do believe Artie Moreno, that is the owner of the team, of the Los Angeles Angels, once again, another big bat in there, Heyman said, and they would move Noel out to left field if they were to do that. I think Santander is probably a little bit more likely, and shout out to SI.com for the transliteration. Now, hearing that, there's a lot of things to unpack. First of all, if you guys haven't heard about Nolan Shawnoel's journey to the majors, do that. There's a couple documentaries on YouTube. You'll like the guy. And second of all, at first, when I heard this, I go, the Angels? Why would the Angels even consider that? Is that something is that hearsay? Is that kind of like speculation? But then I thought about it just a little bit. You see, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, California, are about 40 miles away from LA proper. Not sure why they went with that. I still prefer California Angels. Are doing something pretty cheeky, and I wanted to give you a little bit of an illustration of that momentarily. But the idea is that over this this offseason period, they have been picking up some pieces for their team. The Angels had a disappointing season under Ron Washington, who was a skipper there, and they're looking to really rely on more a veteran presence with some of their own grown talent. The aforementioned Noel, and of course Logan O'Hoppe, the incumbent catcher. This is kind of a blueprint we saw being used by the Kansas City Royals of 2024, and that got them a playoff berth. And I don't try to speak a lie to this. I want to put this up here on the screen to give you an idea of what they did over the past couple of days, getting Travis d'Arnaud, former Met and Atlanta Braves, in free agency, Jorge Soler from Atlanta as well, Yusei Kikuchi, who was lights out for the Astros, being traded at the deadline, and Kyle Hendricks from Chicago. And even though Chucky Robinson isn't really necessarily on the same level as the aforementioned Kyle Hendricks, Kikuchi, Jorge Soler, or Travis d'Arnaud, as a person of color, I like the fact there are still black catchers out there, so I'll put him on the list as well. Point what I'm saying is the Angels are trying to build up a team in a very winnable AL West. We all know that Houston Astros are the stalwarts, the Texas Texas Rangers were, until the Dodgers won the World Series this year, the incumbent world champions, but they both stumbled in the postseason. They could be wide open in the AL West because you look at the Athletics having kind of a half of a home and Seattle's worries and woes with the offense. The Angels do have a chance to be competitive every single year, so it would behoove them to look at some of the people on the free agent market. But I don't quite believe Pete Alonso is their guy. I do think Heyman is kind of talking out the side of his neck, but that's just me, man. I'm not an insider. He is, right? But the very idea of what are we doing here in Queens? Why won't we sign them? Why won't we sign him? It really becomes down to feel-good vibes versus actual numbers. If you guys ever played a game like Football Manager, or in my case, Out of the Park Baseball, which is a GM simulation game, what the Mets are offering high AAV over a short time is consummate for someone of Pete Alonso's stature. But if you understand what it means to be a torchbearer, a flag bearer for a team that has generally underachieved, like New York, unfortunately, you can understand why we would want a longer-term deal. Lock Pete up, put him in all the souvenir cups, have his charity, work with the team, everyone's happy. And so I do think there is kind of a cold, callous business versus good time vibes there. Will Sammon had a mailbag over at The Athletic for those to contribute about the situation with the Mets in general, but there really was a question that I think kind of applies here. Someone had asked, if the Mets can only make one more signing this season, who would you sign, especially if we know there's so many different contributors out there? Well, Sammon actually writes, I'd Alonso. He fits great with the Mets lineup. Many people devalue the idea of protection in a lineup these days, and I agree with them. It matters more who gets on base for our club's best hitter, but I can see the other side. How a big presence behind Soto offers help, even if it's more of a mental thing, because Pete Alonso is no slouch. As a smaller consideration, I like to think more of a Mark Vientos at third base, and I actually am inclined to agree there. Mark showed that he can really improve at third base and really be the third base of record going forward. But I also understand hesitation of going long for Alonso. A lot of teams these days would see a 30-year-old right-handed batting first baseman with a ton of power but no other above-average tools as a short-term investment. The only problem is that Pete is homegrown, and that kind of changes some of the equation for some people. Still, as a homegrown player with a proven track record in New York, perhaps the Mets end up paying a little more for Alonso. And a little more, I do mean the years here. Pete Alonso hasn't had the best season and a half. I know a lot of people have made a lot of light of that contract idea of the 7-year deal he had turned down. Has come back to bite him, but I do think because of it's the team is underachieved, and you're really not going to get the home runs if you care about that sort of thing from any first baseman currently on the free agent market. That I would probably go for a year package close to what Pete wants, maybe 5 years, maybe 6 years. But that's just me. But that stands right now that Jon Heyman thinks the Angels are looking at them, or maybe they are looking at them. So there's still options out there. And I know as teams get to show up their dancing partners at first base, the market is cooling around Pete Alonso. But here's a team we really didn't even have on the board a week and a half ago, getting the rub from an MLB insider. Finally, tonight, we had a bit of a tragedy from the Mets family over the holiday weekend between Christmas and New Year's. We lost a Mets player for the name of Lenny Randle. Lenny played in the 78 and 79 seasons for the New York Mets, and he passed away on December 29th of last year, 2024. He was 75 years old. If you have any memories about Mr. Randle, please let us know in the comments below. Ladies and gentlemen, you hit the end of the video. Thank you so much for rocking with me. I love being a part of Mets Digest, and I love your feedback as well. You know the deal. Let me know what you think. I'll be back next time, sooner than you think. And as always, it's LGM to the bitter end.